Good morning, James. So we got some action in the Premier League. I didn't think it was going to happen with all of the COVID situations going on, but we did. We got 4 games. One game was actually postponed 2 hours to kick off. That was Aston Villa against Burnley, so we will not talk about that. But what I'm happy about especially is that Liverpool and Spurs got to go on, because what a fantastic game that was. Everybody is saying that is what the Premier League is all about. And I think that was just an action-packed game, and we saw that end 2-2. Everybody, including yourself, had Liverpool on the money line, despite being a bit weaker in the midfield. But you did say in your preview it was going to be difficult for Liverpool if they were to go and get 3 points. It was a difficult game. They shared the points. What did you make of Liverpool's performance against Spurs?
Yeah, listen, like you mentioned there, it was very much that advertisement for the Prem, the greatest league in the world, they keep telling us, and that demonstrates it is the greatest league in the world from a purely entertainment standpoint. 2 teams going at each other. And listen, Liverpool played pretty well. They weren't great. You mentioned the midfield, Fabinho being out, Henderson being out, Virgil van Dijk at the back, out. They were decimated, you could say, well. But we're seeing some depth there too as well, though, and I think that's important for this Reds team, that we keep saying that they're not the favourites because City have all the depth. Well, we're seeing some pretty good depth from Liverpool, and, it could have gone either way, quite frankly. There should have been a penalty. I don't know how it wasn't given for Diego Jota in that one. There were other great chances. But listen, you give Spurs all the credit in the world that they played a really good game. They're definitely doing something right under Antonio Conte. He's changing that side because they got some real fight in them now that has been lacking all season long. And if Harry Kane could just finish, they would have won that game as well.
Interesting that this is the same set of players they were under Mourinho, they were under Nuno. They couldn't get the best of these players, and now Conte seems to be doing that. It's also a manager bounce, but Conte is a fantastic manager.
Dele Alli's starting huge matches now, right? Now, it could be to showcase him. He could be leaving in January. There's lots of rumours out there. But the fact that he starts him in that match, and he looked half decent, probably should have scored if not for a brilliant save from Alisson. So, yeah, it's amazing how... we talk about managers, and some people say, they're kind of unnecessary. You could just put the player... No, they're very necessary because it's a different Spurs team under Antonio Conte, and we're seeing different performances from some players that we thought were just done and dusted at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. So, yeah, a really intriguing team to watch, I think, over the coming weeks, assuming there's games.
Yeah, well, with managers, one who's consistently proving his worth and proving that he's one of the best managers in the world is Pep Guardiola. James, Manchester City. I'm not sure what else there is to say. They just beat Newcastle 4-0. You said it could get pretty bad. I thought it was going to get worse based on Newcastle defending, which was shocking. But what did you make of that performance?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, that was really bad defending. And obviously, Eddie Howe's come in, and we've seen manager bounces for other managers. Conte, you mentioned there. Dean Smith at Norwich, they look much better. Steven Gerrard at Villa, of course, all got their jobs around the same time as Eddie Howe. And they've all improved defensively, and Newcastle haven't. They were just dreadful. And I don't blame Eddie Howe. It's the players, I think, and they're in transition, obviously. But you play Man City and you lose, by 4 goals, I think it's a victory. Because this team can put 7 or 8 on you if they want to. And it does seem that under Pep, they're managing themselves, because City were good. Obviously, they're brilliant. I mean, they just dominated that game, but they can be better. So you wonder if they're just, managing their energy levels. And let's just get the 4 today, fellas. Meanwhile, Jack Grealish and Phil Foden were not playing. And it seems like there's some disciplinary reasons for that, which is really interesting. Guys that played so great the last couple of games, 2 players that are very much the faces of that side. And Pep saying, well, there was some behavioural issues off the field. Now, is that COVID related? I don't know. Phil Foden's got a little bit of history there. But the fact that it's Pep's side, right? I mean, you mentioned it's his club. He is the boss. I don't care who you are, what your name is. He's calling the shots. And it just is another layer to that club. And that's why they are the favourites for this year's championship once again.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter who gets into that 11. It just seems to work. Everyone knows their role. João Cancelo, what a season he's having.
What a season he's had,
back to Newcastle. I don't see them getting many points in their next 3 or 4 fixtures. They have Manchester United next. I don't care who they play, if it's Watford or Norwich. I just don't see it happening. Are they in real danger of getting relegated?
Oh, they have to be. I mean, 1 win in the season. I mean, my God, that is not a good team. And it seems the players, I mean, you look at those players right now, and yeah, there's new owners and a new manager, but they know that they're on the way out. There's no, I don't think, motivation to really perform, it seems. That's what I'm seeing from this team. There's no fight in that side right now. And, you know, with the money coming in and the players being linked with that club, you've got to think these incumbents are like saying, well, what's the point? I'm moving anyway, which is a bit of a statement perhaps in their character. So it is tough days for Newcastle. I'm sure the new ownership came in thinking that a relegation was a possibility. They have to have prepared for that financially, obviously. So maybe it's a longer route back to the top. That being said, they're going to spend money in January. The question is, what kind of players will they attract? You know, perhaps if they were outside the drop zone, they'd attract a certain element of player that's better than perhaps they'll attract if they're dead last, for example. So it's going to be really interesting. Money talks, go the mercenary route, get guys in short-term contracts, pay them a hell of a lot of money, and try and dig yourself out of this hole. But it's going to be really tough.
Chelsea, speaking of a team in a bit of a hole, dropping points consistently now. 0-0 against Wolves. You went out on a limb, called Wolves plus 600. I backed you. I thought this was a perfect position, a perfect time for Wolves to play Chelsea with all the COVID injuries, and Tuchel pretty much saying that they didn't really want to play this game. Heading into it, he was essentially saying, we want this game off, but they didn't get it. Wolves battled well, as we saw against Liverpool in the previous game, and another 3 points lost for Chelsea.
It seems that I'm really close to a really good weekend. Really close. But
yeah.
But not close enough. In fact, it's a terrible weekend, once again. You know, listen, Wolves are, like I mentioned, they're a really good side. Bruno Lage has done a great job there. Defensively, they're so tough to beat. And when you're facing a team like Chelsea, who have some issues with COVID, even before then, they were having a little bit of issues up front. I know they scored some goals the last couple of games, but overall, you know, they haven't got that. Lukaku hasn't fired. He's been injured. Timo Werner's still Timo Werner, despite, you know, teasing us every now and again. There's something not quite right there. You know, it's tough given the injuries. It's good to see N'Golo Kante back in the side, obviously, although he probably should have been sent off in that game for that challenge, the goal scoring opportunity. But, you know, I think they're going to be fine, but I think we're seeing the top two teams kind of break away a little bit now. I know Liverpool dropped points this weekend as well, but there is a slight difference. You know, Chelsea's really good, don't get me wrong, and when they're healthy, they're going to be a contender, obviously. But I think there is a bit of a gulf there between them and the top two teams. I mean, seeing that now, it's almost like a three-tier race for top four football right now.
Yeah, difficult for Tuchel. Do you think, knowing Chelsea's history with managers, is he under pressure now?
Nah, he can't be. I mean, look at where they were when he came aboard. I mean, they couldn't prevent goals from being scored. He turned them all around. He won a Champions League, got them in the top four this year. They were competing up until the last, couple of weeks for first place. I mean, listen, I understand what you're saying because, Roman's got history, shall we say, but Tuchel's one of the great managers in world football, and we've seen this team come along leaps and bounds. I can't imagine he'd be under pressure, but hey, stranger things have happened.
Yeah, I think he's built up enough in the bank with that Champions League, but we've seen it before. Roberto Di Matteo is one that comes to mind. One manager that is definitely under pressure, James, Marcelo Bielsa. Arsenal 4, Leeds 1. You called this one. You said, Arsenal is going to beat this team, but how many we don't know. 4-1, another good performance by Arsenal. Another poor performance by Leeds, obviously decimated by injuries. Before we get on to the Arsenal side, Bielsa and Leeds, what do you see happening there?
It's really interesting, isn't it? Because, Leeds, if you look at that team sheet on the weekend, I don't know who those players were. Most of them.
They had a 15-year-old on the bench, James.
Yeah, incredible. So you can't judge a manager, I don't think, at this point, by that squad. Because, my God, they had so many regulars out. And Calvin Phillips being the big one, of course. If you see their record with and without Calvin Phillips, it's so clear how they rely on that guy, a young player. And that's a problem, obviously. That being said, at some point, Bielsa has to be looked at. He signs the players. It's his club, right? He demands autonomy on transfers and demands who he wants, who he doesn't want, right? So he's built that squad. And obviously it's not deep enough right now. So yeah, points and fingers. He's a strange character, isn't he, Bielsa? He's one of those guys that you could see walking away at the end of the season. He signs 1-year deals. That's all he does in his career. He likes new challenges, but he's done something pretty special with Leeds. He's brought them back to where they should be. But They got to spend some money in January. They really do, because they haven't got the depth to compete at this point. They're getting smashed week in and week out. In what's been a very strange season, the best thing for them, let's be honest, would be a shutdown of games for a couple of weeks to get healthy once again. It really would, and they'll never admit that, ever. But that would be a very positive step for a team like Leeds.
Yeah, it's something that kind of helps Spurs, actually, with Conte having a bit more training sessions and having players come back from injury. So, I mean, it really could benefit them, but injuries...
Well, that's a good point,
Leeds,
Albert. Because, I mean, Spurs, they missed the previous 3 games through COVID protocols, right? And they come back and they look much better. So he's taken advantage of this time, for sure.
Arsenal, are we believing the hype, James?
Not yet. They're the hype. I believe the hype as far as top 4 football. They're going to be competing for 4th place. Martinelli looks really good once again, and with Aubameyang on the way out, or at least he's been disciplined, he's been suspended right now. Martinelli stepping up and looking superb. Saka's looking very good. Smith-Rowe, my God, I'm a fan of this guy, not just because of the socks, but because he's a really good player. They got a lot of potential for sure, and Arteta's doing a nice job there. But if you look at who they've beaten so far, they've beaten weaker teams. I want to see them play against the top teams and play better. So they're still not the finished article just yet, but hey, good for Arsenal fans. They're getting points, and they're looking pretty good at it. And I think, that 4th place is going to be maybe the battle to watch this season. It's going to go down to the wire, and at this point, I think Arsenal are close to being the favourites for it.
Yeah, Arsenal top 4 at Christmas for the first time in 5 years. And
is that what it is?
4
5
games?
years?
5 years, yeah. But for 4 games that went on this weekend, all 4 games were very good. So hopefully we can talk again next Monday, James, about a full Premier League schedule. Thanks for joining me.
Hey, thanks, mate. We chat soon.